At the end of the 20th century, Russia was exhausted. The Soviet Union had collapsed. The economy was unstable. Millions of people were struggling to survive in a country still trying to redefine itself. And in the final days of 1999, Russia's President Boris Yeltsin made an unexpected announcement. Speaking on national television, he declared that the country needed new leadership to enter the 21st century. He said Russia required new politicians, new faces, and strong, intelligent people capable of leading the nation forward. Then he stepped down. In his place, he appointed a little-known former intelligence officer as acting president. His name was Vladimir Putin. At that moment, very few people outside government circles knew who he really was. But within a few years, he would become one of the most powerful leaders in modern history. Russia in crisis. By the late 1990s, Boris Yeltsin's presidency had become deeply unpopular. His government faced widespread criticism over corruption, economic collapse, and political instability. While Yeltsin had played a central role in ending the Soviet Union, the years that followed were painful for many Russians. The country was attempting to transform from a communist system into a market economy, a transition that caused unemployment, poverty, and rising inequality. Ordinary citizens felt the state had lost control. When Yeltsin selected Putin as his successor, he promised the public that the change in leadership would not create chaos. He declared that there would be no power vacuum in Russia. At the same time, he warned that anyone attempting to act above the law or challenge the Russian constitution would be firmly crushed. For a population tired of instability, the message was clear: order would return. A different kind of leader. Putin presented a very different image from his predecessor. He was disciplined, reserved, and controlled. Where Yeltsin had often appeared unpredictable, sometimes making headlines for health problems and alcohol, Putin projected calm authority. Earlier in 1999, he had already been appointed prime minister. Before that, however, his career had been far from public. For many years, he had worked in the KGB, the Soviet Union's powerful intelligence agency. His rise into national politics happened quickly. But once he became acting president, his popularity grew rapidly, especially after he adopted a hardline stance during the conflict in Chechnya. Many Russians saw him as a leader willing to restore stability and national pride. In March 2000, Putin won the presidential election and officially became Russia's president. Polls at the time showed that voters were primarily seeking economic stability and a stronger state. Putin's promise was simple: he would make Russia powerful again. A tough image. At the time he took office, Putin was 47 years old. He soon developed an image of strength. He practiced judo, held a black belt, and often spoke in harsh terms about criminals and enemies of the state. One of his famous statements used a striking metaphor. He said that those threatening the country would be dealt with like rats that must be crushed. The phrase reflected something deeper about his past, because Putin's childhood had been far from comfortable. Childhood in post-war Leningrad. Vladimir Putin was born on the 7th of October 1952 in Leningrad, the city now known as St. Petersburg. His early life took place in a city still scarred by World War II. The war had devastated Leningrad. During the brutal siege of Leningrad, which lasted nearly 900 days, millions of people died. Putin's family suffered deeply. His older brother died during the siege, and his parents survived only with great difficulty. The family lived in a small communal apartment where several families shared the same kitchen and bathroom. Such living conditions were common in the Soviet Union at the time. The building was overcrowded, poorly maintained, and filled with rats and cockroaches. Putin later described one incident from his childhood. He once chased a large rat down a hallway. Suddenly, the animal turned around and attacked him before escaping. The moment left a lasting impression. It became one of the stories he often used to illustrate the harsh environment of his youth. A harsh neighborhood. People who knew Putin as a child say the neighborhood where he grew up followed a simple rule: the strong survived. Psychologist Maria Asarina, who knew him during his early years, described the environment as one where power determined everything. Putin himself was small and physically thin as a child. Because of this, he learned early that he needed to appear strong to avoid being bullied. His parents also emphasized discipline and loyalty. They taught him respect for authority, love for the country, and a strong sense of duty. Those close to the family say his parents cared deeply for him. He was the center of their lives. But they were not emotionally expressive people. Displays of affection were rare. Even simple gestures, such as publicly hugging or kissing their son, were unusual. Quiet, but observant. Friends from his school years remember Putin as intelligent but reserved. He rarely tried to attract attention. According to a former classmate, Sergei Kadyrov, Putin preferred influencing events quietly rather than standing at the center of a crowd. This personality trait later defined his leadership style. He was very different from Boris Yeltsin. During the 1991 political crisis in Moscow, Yeltsin famously climbed onto a tank and called on people to support him. Putin would never have done something like that. He was not a dramatic speaker. He preferred strategy and action. The dream of becoming a spy. As a teenager, Putin developed a clear ambition. He wanted to work for the KGB, the Soviet Union's intelligence service. The idea of operating secretly and serving the state appealed to him. According to Putin himself, the inspiration came from a Soviet film called The Shield and the Sword. The movie tells the story of a Soviet spy who infiltrates Nazi Germany during World War II. After watching the film, the young Putin reportedly visited a local KGB office at the age of 16. He asked officials how he could become an intelligence officer. They told him he first needed to complete his education. Several years later, he succeeded. Putin joined the KGB and began a career that would last around 16 years, the end of the Soviet world. During his intelligence career, Putin was assigned to East Germany. He was stationed in the city of Dresden. In 1989, while he was still there, one of the defining events of the 20th century took place. The Berlin Wall collapsed. The fall of the wall symbolized the beginning of the end for the Soviet system. Soon afterward, the Soviet Union itself would disappear. Putin returned to a country undergoing enormous change. The political system that had shaped his career was collapsing. Russia was entering a completely new era. In 1991, Putin began working in politics in his home city. He became deputy mayor of St. Petersburg, serving under reformist mayor Anatoly Sobchak. Over the next several years, Putin quietly built influence inside Russia's political system. Unlike many politicians, he did not rely on public charisma. Instead, he advanced step by step behind the scenes. By the late 1990s, he had moved into the federal government in Moscow. Eventually, he was appointed prime minister. From there, only one step remained: the presidency. Almost overnight, the man who had once been nearly invisible suddenly became the leader of Russia. The leader who stayed. Some supporters initially described Putin's leadership as a breath of fresh air after the chaos of the 1990s. For many Russians, he represented stability, but over time he became something else entirely: a leader who stayed. Putin has now held power, either as president or prime minister, since 1999, making him Russia's longest-serving ruler since Joseph Stalin. Today, at 73 years old, he remains the central figure in Russian politics. Many of his political opponents have been pushed out of public life, imprisoned, exiled, or otherwise marginalized. And after constitutional changes approved in 2020, Putin now has the legal ability to remain president until 2036 if he chooses to run again. For now, there appears to be no clear challenger capable of removing him from power. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to USMag for more in-depth stories.